Kingsman, The Golden Circle, has the unfortunate honor of being the first genuine disappointment I've had in 2017. Granted, I suppose I should be thankful, as it speaks to the quality of films that have been coming out this year. But I really wanted to like this film. The Golden Circle is the sequel to 2014's Kingsman, The Secret Service, a surprise hit with moviegoers and critics. The first movie was played off as almost a parody spy film, with over-the-top, occasionally gory action, a solid cast, a beautiful musical score, and just a general fun, over-the-top feel. And Kingsman, The Golden Circle has all that going for it. It's also one of my all-time favorite action movies. The Golden Circle does all of those things I mentioned that the first film does, but it adds severe tone problems and an unpleasant villain, making this an unfortunately unpleasant experience.
Eggsy, I saw in you what someone once saw in me. Something that can't be taught. The makings of a Kingsman.
The Golden Circle is a relatively immediate sequel, plot-wise at least, with leads Taron Egerton, Colin Firth, and Mark Strong returning, joined by Halle Berry, Channing Tatum, Jeff Bridges, and Julianne Moore. The very existence of the Kingsman Agency is in danger, as a ruthless, insane drug lord, played by Julianne Moore, has destroyed all of the agency's facilities and murdered all the agents except Eggsy, once again played by Taron Egerton, and Merlin, played by Mark Strong. And the ruthless, insane drug lord has decided to poison the world's drug users.
Today marks the beginning of a new age. Wait, I'm gonna show you. Say goodbye to the Kingsman.
Kind of got a bit of a save the world situation here.
The first Kingsman is by no means a perfect film, but at the very least it knows what it is. While the first movie has a bit of a dark undertone to its plot, that being a tech giant who's trying to save the world from global warming by giving everybody these special SIM cards that'll make them kill each other, it still knew how to not take itself too seriously. The problem with The Golden Circle, however, is that it tries to have a plot with a dark undertone, but it tries way too hard to keep that dark undertone and make it feel as if it's trying to be a dark, serious action movie, when it's not. And the first big instance of this is not one, but two scenes where a man is literally put into a giant meat grinder and turned into ground meat. One of those scenes includes the man being turned into a burger that one of Julianne Moore's henchmen has to eat. And I cannot tell if that's the movie trying to be funny or twisted. Because the thing is, if it was a joke, and my mother, who saw this with me, tried to make the point that it might be like the scene in the first movie where all the heads are exploding, set to pomp and circumstance, where it's trying to have shock value, but it isn't succeeding because it's not funny. Because the thing is, I saw this in IMAX, and in the relatively well-attended IMAX screening, not a single person laughed either time that the meat grinder was used. It was just gross. If it was a joke, it fell flat, and if it was trying to be dark, shame on them because it didn't work. And some of the subplots also suffer from trying to be way too dark. While I won't go into spoilers, there's these weird, dark political statements regarding there's the President of the United States that has a pretty important role without giving anything away. And it's trying to make statements against politicians, trying to make statements about the war on drugs, and it's failing because this is a fun movie. This isn't supposed to be the kind of movie where I'm going to get political statements or just dark, twisted things. I expect the movie to be a little bit blood happy, but I don't want it to have these dark, unpleasant thinking moments. When discussing it with my mother on the way home from the theater, I had the fact that she had to like think about what it's potentially representing is exactly what's wrong with it. A Kingsman movie is not a thinking movie. It's a fun movie. I don't want to think in my Kingsman movie. What I expect from a Kingsman movie is it to have a good sense of humor. And it's there. But the problem is that the Kingsman sense of humor mixed with horrifying images like the meat grinders or scenes like the ones in the field hospitals, if you've seen it, you know what I mean, don't mix with a movie that will make jokes about women's private parts and just violence. It doesn't mix. You can have a dark sense of humor, but you have to really know what you're doing to make dark jokes. And this movie doesn't, I don't think the writers have the skill to make dark jokes, and B, I don't think that's fitting in a Kingsman movie. Again, not to keep comparing it to the first movie, but the first movie had jokes about like violence and sex and things, but it didn't go dark. This movie tried to go with like dark humor, and it just failed. Also, Julianne Moore's villain, Poppy, is really just not pleasant. In the first movie, Samuel Jackson had played a villain that was a little twisted, but he was almost lovable. He was a lovable villain. He was memorable. He was funny. He had the lisp going for him. And Julianne Moore is just dark. Her villain is just, granted, she did a great job like playing the role, but the script just made a villain that was dark for the sense of being dark. Their attempt at like a clever twist is that she's obsessed with the 50s and created this like 50s nostalgia hideout for herself, but she isn't memorable. She doesn't play it up. She's not cartoony. She's not fun. I really did not like the villain. While this movie has a lot of problems, there is a lot to be praised. In the first being that when the movie is actually trying to be funny in the way that the first movie is, it's succeeding. If you've seen the first Kingsman movie, you know that its sense of humor is fantastic. It's a little immature, but it's fantastic. But this goes back to, unfortunately, a problem. While the humor is fantastic, I had a tough time focusing on the jokes after they had so many dark moments, which goes back to tonal inconsistency, but we won't go into that again. I did really appreciate its sense of humor when it was actually being funny. As expected from a Kingsman movie, the action sequences are out of this world. It's done in that same style where the camera zooms in, zooms out, and does a lot of like speed up, slow motion, but that's what I expect from a Kingsman movie. Incredible action sequences, and they are gory, but in the right ways, and most importantly, they're fun. Not giving away the details of the climax, but the climax is set to Elton John's Saturday Night, and that's it's exactly what a Kingsman movie is supposed to be. It's insane, it's fun, stuff's blowing up everywhere. I had a blast. Every action sequence, I had an incredibly fun time with, which is what I wanted out of this movie. Yeah. I don't mean to nerd out, but like I love the Kingsman action. It's exactly why I loved the first movie. One of the things about the first Kingsman movie that was a genuine surprise to me was how great the musical composition was. And the two composers who composed the first movie, Henry Jackson and Matthew Margeson, have returned to do this movie. And not any shock on my part, the musical composition is as gorgeous as ever. I just really like it. Like, I can't point to anything in particular. It has that grand spy movie feel, which is exactly what they're going for. They understand what they're composing for and how to make it work. And I loved it.
Welcome to Statesman.
As your American cousins, we'll be working side by side.
It is unfortunate that one of the first sequels I was genuinely looking forward to this year turned out to be such a disappointment. While its stellar action sequences, beautiful musical score, and genuine sense of humor helped the movie from being god-awful, its inconsistent tone and forgettable villain prevented it from being a truly great sequel. A 3 out of 5.